Hey everyone, welcome to the Finding Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Adam Vora, and I'm so grateful to have you here. This podcast is all about exploring the journeys of incredible individuals, people who have faced adversity, found their purpose, and are now making an impact in their communities. But it's also about my journey. Over the years, I've faced my own obstacles, moments of doubt, and struggles with identity. Through it all, I found my purpose in giving back, creating a space where people can detach from the negative emotions and stigmas they may associate with their own stories, just like I did with mine. Here, we have real conversations about growth, resilience, and transformation. Whether you're searching for direction, striving for personal development, or simply looking for a place to feel seen and understood, this is for you. So if these conversations resonate with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us on social media. Now let's dive into today's episode.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Finding Purpose podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm your host. Thank you again for your continued support. Every listen, review, and share means the world and helps me grow this purpose-driven community. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review the show. Last week's episode with Mar Jennings, America's top lifestyle expert and the creator of Life on Mars, reminded us all that with vision and resilience, you can transform your life and your surroundings into something truly extraordinary. It was a powerful conversation, and I highly recommend checking it out if you missed it. Today, we're keeping that energy going with a guest who embodies what it means to live boldly and build with intention. Diamandia Lingos is a Yale graduate, an international TEDx speaker, and a former VP at the UFC who has spent over 2 decades leading global branding initiatives, building creative strategy, and driving millions in revenue for companies around the world. But her powerful transformation came when she turned inward, choosing to align with intention, heal from within, and build a life rooted in purpose. From the boardroom to the spiritual journey, she's done it all. And now she's built a brand that reflects her truest self. I can't wait for you to hear this one. Let's get into it. Here is Diamandia Lingos.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. You know, I love how I continue to be connected with purpose-driven, rooted in intention folks. And obviously, shout out to Dave Regina and Sean Degnan for bringing us together so that we could sit down here at Kai Vision's new studios. Shout out to CV, the man behind so many people's just their product, you know, like he just does such a great job. But I want to jump into your story because we had an awesome conversation. I immediately resonated towards your energy.
Thank you.
Traditionally, I really just start kind of just where are you from? And I'd want to just jump into your early life.
I'm originally from New York. I grew up in the Bronx and then moved to Connecticut and then kind of moved back and forth. My dad is Greek, so Greece was always involved, and you know, my big fat Greek wedding is real, minus the Windex, so it was a potato. But yeah, so I went to college in Rhode Island and then really wasn't sure what I was doing in college. You know, I was very lost. I didn't really have a clear vision, but I started gravitating towards like what I liked. And I went to school to be pre-med and I ended up in art school. So hard left that one. But, you know, I was failing out and I needed to get my GPA up if I was actually going to get into med school, which I wasn't going to. So I started taking some blow-off classes, you know, quote unquote, and those were art classes. And I would go to them, which was huge at that time because I wasn't going to my classes. I was going to my 8 a.m. studio classes. So that was like, okay, I really like this. I never learned about it. I never learned to see the world that way, which was a big thing for me. Was it taught me how to look at things different ways in order to draw it, right? Yeah. You had to draw an apple 100 different times, the same apple without moving it or touching it. You learn to look at it 100 different ways.
I love that.
So the conceptualness that was taught from the art perspective was massive in my career, because I'm always thinking about the receiver of the information, the person viewing whatever it is that I create, who's receiving this and how are they viewing it. Mm-hmm. So I'm always thinking about that from that conceptual point, and that's what art school really like piled into me. I went to grad school in Boston. I started working for a restaurant group in Boston at the same time. And I was just like a graphic designer and a bartender, just like, hustling to make money and busting my ass. And, a lot of people left and opportunities opened within the company, and they grew nationally and I grew nationally with them. And I was with them for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
I went from, a graphic designer bartender to a VP, creative services for them. I opened up 35 restaurants throughout the United States. And when I took 3 brands nationally with them, and then, stepped away from that, and my brother had passed away, and I kind of had a nervous breakdown, I would say. And I took a year off of work, which was like, I'm Greek, it's your work ethic is, you're Greek. Yeah. So you work 15 hours a day. That's normal. It's so. Stepping away from work to focus on myself and not really clear about what my career path was, I ended up going back to school to get a business degree. And then I was with someone at the time, and they got a job in Las Vegas, a job offer. So I moved to Las Vegas blindly, had never been to Las Vegas before.
First time, and
my
you just
first
decided to
time
stay there.
Was showing up with a truck of my stuff. I was like, is this Vegas? And they're like, yeah, you live here now. And I was like, giddy up, I guess. So I was there for about 9 months. I didn't have a job there. My relationship fell apart because if anyone listening to this never moved to Las Vegas with a boyfriend, ever, you become a cliche. Everyone was like, yeah, duh. And I'm like, no one told me this. That wasn't in the handbook.
That's funny.
So I was alone in Vegas, and it was the first week I applied to the UFC. I was in my first round of interviews. My relationship was falling apart. I found out my partner at the time was cheating on me my first week of work there. So I was in this crazy career moment, in this insane job. I can't believe I even got the job, let alone was sitting in the office working. And then I went through this breakup in the middle of all these strangers that I just met, and they were like, who's the crazy fucking new girl, And I was really hit with a moment of, the company was about to broadcast the 20th anniversary episode on ESPN. Okay. And it was the 20-year anniversary of how the UFC survived. And, at the time, the company was only about 80 to 100 people. It was very small then. And we were brought into what they call a town hall meeting. And Lorenzo Fertitta was the owner at the time. And he owns a lot of casinos around the city, outside of the Strip. So Red Rock was one of the casinos. Mm-hmm. And we would go and view the movie before it would air. Yep. So I'm, going to this my first town hall meeting. I'm, crying, sobbing because my heart was ripped apart. And I'm watching this documentary about this company that I'm Dana gets up, and it was so much shock. I can't explain how much I was I don't fucking belong here. This isn't fucking real. That's fucking Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? That took a while to go away. But you go in, and it's just they're so big, the people, they're just human beings. But when you're still figuring out if you belong, you feel they're so huge. He's a billionaire. Yeah. Holy shit, that's fucking, Holyfield fights are popping in your brain. It's intense. So I was having this moment of extreme struggle, and I'm watching this documentary about this company that almost went bankrupt, and it was about to fold. And The Ultimate Fighter was live on Spike TV, and the final episode of The Ultimate Fighter was Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin fighting. And they came out of that fight and kicked the fucking shit out of each other. And that broadcast went through the roof. Ratings went through the roof. That saved the company. That episode of that fight saved the company from bankruptcy right there. They were folding, right? They were going to fold.
It's like that one more.
It was that one moment. And they had so much heart and so much energy. You know, the winner was supposed to receive the offer as a fighter. They both got contracts, which has never happened before. And that was like the pinnacle point of the company. And here I am sitting here like, am I going home or am I going to take this opportunity? Am I going to like ride it?
Yeah.
And I knew right then and there, I was like, oh no, motherfucker, you are not going anywhere. You are staying here and you're taking this opportunity and you are going to ride it into the ground. And I just became an animal. Like right at that moment, I was like, fuck everything and everyone. I am taking this as far as I possibly can. And I'm not looking back and I'm not apologizing for it. And I don't give a fuck. And that was like how I like moved through that part of my career. That was like my UFC days. I just was an animal. You know, I was the first venture capital employee of the company, which was a lot of learning. There were 5 presidents that I had to report to. You know, there were no systems in place. It was building everything that the UFC had built and replicating that for franchisees. You know, I walked into 150 gyms. You know, I didn't have floor plans. I didn't have shit. And it was like everything was going at ultimate pace. And I just had to keep up and take no prisoners. So it was like, that was a huge moment for me where I was like, and also I wanted to be hot as fuck. Because I just had my heart ripped out and I was in Vegas and everyone's a 12. Like you're a 10 and you're a 5. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you walk and it like, you're like, whoa, like no one has real tits. No one's ass is real. Like I'm not going to go that far, but like, it was like, holy shit, like this is going to take some energy and effort. I have to show the fuck up here, you know? So I went and doubled down and I pushed really hard. I pushed too hard in retrospect now, but that coming out of that experience, you know, I didn't even know what to do after. Yeah. You know, and I had a massive trauma occur. My fiancé had killed himself on Christmas Day, and that made everything stop for me. So I was going at this like massive 100,000 mile speed, Vegas, Strip, UFC, Ultimates, everything. And then I hit this massive brick wall of this suicide. And when that happened, I lost all sense of who I was. Yeah. Because at that time, my job, my title, my bank account, my address all defined my self-worth. And when that was taken away, I had to step away from that job. I had to step away from that career because I couldn't emotionally do anything. Yeah. I didn't even know what was happening with myself. I became very depressed and suicidal, and I had to really figure out who I was and what I wanted to do because I was at ground zero, you know, and I knew that my lifestyle that I was living before wasn't sustainable.
Totally, yeah.
And, you know, I was, you know, at that point, not in a place where I wanted to live. So once I got that kind of fundamental grounding of you're going to be here and you're doing this, like I, from a pain perspective, knew I couldn't handle the pain and I didn't want to feel it, which is why I felt those feelings of suicide. But in like the pit of my stomach, I knew that like that wasn't going to be my story. Like, this is not how I'm fucking going out. This is not how I'm going out. It's not going to be by my own hand.
I kind of want to like, you just like laid out like kind of everything,
Hi,
which
everyone.
is awesome. And God, I have so much to say. So I really want to just kind of go back to the very beginning because you alluded to the Greek culture. And I always think that the culture and the family subset that you grow up in really frames a lot of how you move throughout your adult life. So how did the Greek culture really play a role? And you know, you said you had did you have a large family?
No, I had a smaller family, and I would say that most of my childhood I blacked out. I grew up in a very toxic, unhealthy physically abusive and emotionally abusive home.
Okay.
There was no love in my house. And I am the way that I am because of the work that I have done as an adult. And this hustle, this grind, the Greek, work ethic, I was trying to substitute love from my family my whole life.
Yeah.
I was trying to prove that I was worthy of love. So that pushed me, that toxic, that unhealthiness. I'm very grateful for it because it pushed me to build what I've built, but in a very unhealthy way. Like I was extremely unhealthy about how psychotically driven that I was.
Yeah.
There was no rest. I had shingles 40 times because my body just threw the middle fingers up at me because I was pushing way too hard. And I now realize with the amount of work that I've done with myself, I was just searching for love from my parents and trying to prove that I was worthy of it. And it wasn't until, I had that suicide and I went in to do the work with myself on that, did I start looking at the relationship with my parents. Did I start looking at the relationship with my dad and my mom? And I remember being in a session, and I, at that time, was going every day to therapy because that's all I had to do.
Yeah.
Was just get my ass to therapy the next day, and that was it. And I remember going, and my therapist, who saved my fucking life, and I also saved my life, she looked at me, and I was talking about the suicide, and she was like, so tell me about your relationship with your parents.
Yeah.
And I remember like rage came through my body and like fire, and I almost jumped across the fucking table and like choked. Like I was visualizing choking this woman out. And I'm like, oh, that's something we have to look at, isn't it? Like this shouldn't be the visceral.
That shouldn't be my immediate reaction.
Yeah, visceral response to my therapist in a safe space asking about my parents.
I mean, you mentioned that you had lost your brother also.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my brother overdosed on heroin. I don't even know how long ago it was, but, he was doing what I was doing differently.
Yeah.
So I was hustling it out. My brother was using drugs as a way of, self-soothing our family dynamic.
It's so funny because I think about my childhood and just my parents and the way that we grew up and a lot of the things that occurred to me that, you would now brand as traumatic. In the moment, you're kind of like bumping along.
It's normal.
And you're a kid, so you're used to just kind of compartmentalizing it and tucking it away, and then it comes back. And now that you mentioned how your brother reacted, me and my sister responded to these traumas very differently. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of wild to see how it made us each grow. And, I did a little mixture of you and your brother because I was, an active alcoholic and addict for, 15 years. But I also like hustled because I had to. And for me, it wasn't really for accolades as much as it was to sustain.
So survival.
Yeah.
You just had to fucking survive.
For her, she reacted very differently. She was more intrusive. I was just like, fuck everyone. Let's just keep it going. And, I'm just going to keep getting high and keep getting drunk and I'll show you, I'll get back to you, mom and dad. And, that really, obviously, everyone knows how that plays out. But how did, having that like reaction, to your upbringing translate academically? Because, you said you initially went in for MD and you pivoted to art. And when did you go to Yale?
I went to Yale while I was at the UFC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Think about that for a minute.
Yeah, because you're in Boston first, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you were in school, when did you kind of start realizing that you're different? The way that you're approaching things is different.
I've always known that like my brain works differently than other people. It took me a long time to accept that about myself. But I've always known that I was like a different person. And I used to look down upon it. And now I accept it. And I'm just like proud of it. And some people receive that as arrogance, right? but it's not. I am very humble. I've gotten my ass kicked and have, gotten back up daily. And, it's not at all from a space of that from there. It's to show other people what's possible. I do the career and the companies that I have now is fully about showing people what's possible with themselves if they do the work with themselves. So it's just been like this inward, I know that in my career and in my education, I've been pulling pieces that I've learned from different people, from different companies, from different, academic places. And I've morphed it into what I do now.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to do what I do now if I didn't do all of the things right, wrong, failed, or aced, or got fired, or, whatever the journey was. I pulled so much information out of all those experiences that I have created this life.
Yeah.
And it's all been very important. But when I was in the moment, I didn't understand what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I went for art and I was like, well, I'll focus on digital communication because that's what graphic design was called, because I wanted to be practical about being able to make money because I was surviving.
Yeah.
Right. And then I was like, well, if I'm working with, in a restaurant world with these big associates, like I need a master's, because I want to be taken seriously. And so I got my master's and I was doing that while I was working. And so then I was like, okay, well, if I really want to be taken seriously and like be able to sit in board meetings, I need a business degree. And so I just like threw that in the fucking pile too and was like, let's educate myself on business. And then started with, getting involved with real estate. And like, it was just pieces of the puzzle. But at the time I was like, well, I want to be, it was more like I want to be taken seriously. And what education do I need to be able to play the game with these players?
Yeah.
That's how I kind of focused that part of my life until, once I got to the Yale experience was absolutely amazing. And that taught me how to like take how I see the world and change how people like function in their daily life.
What's your degree from Yale?
It's through their executive education program.
Nice.
So it's their business degree through executive education. They partner with AIGA, which is the leaders of creative, I would say. And they chose, I think, 30 people out of like 2,000 that applied to be part of this like incubator type experience.
One of the things that you just said though was, each time you felt like you needed to prove yourself. Mm-hmm. And when you're constantly in that cycle of needing to prove yourself, luckily it drove you to just accomplish something and obtain a degree or, elevate yourself on the educational level. Now, what do you say to people who feel like they're not enough?
It's so funny. That's my biggest lesson, right? Is that I didn't need to get all those degrees. I didn't need to, climb Rainbow Mountain twice in Peru. I didn't need to do ayahuasca twice. I didn't need to do any of that. I was enough.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I woke up and I'm breathing is enough. And you don't need anything external to validate yourself. And it's with like your relationship with self that you need to look at. Yeah. Why you need someone to validate your existence. And that's what I needed to look at, and I was able to look at that through a couple of different ways, but it did take the suicide. It did take me doing ayahuasca too, twice, to really nail that message all the way in, because I'm very resistant. Yeah. No one's going to fucking tell me what to do, first of all. And so learning these lessons, I'm immediately saying, no, I'm going to immediately my initial is always to push back. Okay. Yeah. So that's my gut reaction. Growing up in a Greek family, being a female in a Greek family, I was told what to do. Like, you're going to get married. You're going to have babies. Like, why aren't you married? Why aren't you having babies? How come you need to go get a job over here? And you got to give me your pay. And I remember at 13 just being like, nope, nope, and no, and no. And so that just resonated with me. Like, no man's telling me what to do. And like, you guys can go fuck yourself. So I was always proving that I was right.
Yeah.
You know, and then getting the education to back that up as well, right? But now having the understanding that I do, I didn't need to do any of that.
Yeah.
At all.
Do you think that your approach back then, in hindsight, there was an easier, softer way? Or do you think that you absolutely needed to do that? Because, you know,
There
you've
was
accomplished
a softer
so
way.
much.
There was a softer way,
Yeah.
but I needed to go down the harder path because I am who I am. So that this path was created for me to learn the lesson, and I needed all of these tacks and all of this heartbreak and all of this to realize that like I'm okay, like by myself, like good, with no validations and no titles and no whatevers, like no bank accounts, no cars, no nothing. Like I'm just fucking good.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with who I am. And it took me 40 years to fucking realize that.
It's so funny because like you listen to all these podcasts and they're always talking about abundance and they're talking about obtaining abundance and obviously different strategies, whether they're financial or, you know, spiritual. And for me, I feel like abundance can mean so many different things. And I really try to stay grounded in the abundance of just like-minded folks who are well-intentioned. Like if I could surround myself with as many people who are like that, to me, that's abundance. To me, it's also just staying grounded in my spirituality and in my relationship with God and my relationship with, you know, my close inner circle of people who love me. That's abundance. And, you know, one thing that I've kind of learned is as long as I'm resonating that, then, you know, the monetary and the physical abundance will therein follow. And I'm learning that kind of the hard way. And it's, I mean, I've learned that the hard way. I've learned that the hard way by making abundance of physical, you know, things being like that North Star. And it's always kind of backfired, frankly. Or people could see right through it. Like this is what's actually motivating him.
Yeah.
When you were finally able to really look in the mirror, and you said it was after the suicide, how did that feel? What did you go through?
I hated myself.
No.
I mean, I hated myself the whole time. That was the problem. I never thought I was enough. So I was trying to like grasp at everything to fill me, right? I hated myself. I hated looking at myself in the mirror, not, you know, not from a physical standpoint, but from an emotional and spiritual standpoint. I had no spirituality, and I use that word with caution because I'm not talking about God per se. But doing the work that I've done with myself, I realize that I'm not the puppet master. You know, the universe is the puppet master, and it's my job to create the frequency that I put out there to receive what I am looking for. And the more I give, the more I receive. And the more work I do with whatever's holding me back from giving more is always the next level up. And I've seen that with my, you know, the company that I have now that I've launched because of my struggles.
Awesomest name. Diamandia. I love it. Like you have such a great name. It's marketable. It's beautiful. It's Greek. Like I just love it. And it means diamond.
Yeah. And I've been, you know, I definitely was coal for a long time, and I was put under a lot of pressure, and it made the most sense to me that this company is about my physical relationship with my body and healing my body from the inside out. It's not about weight. It's not about anything but reducing inflammation in your system and really looking inward at what needs to happen. And in order for me to do that, in order for me to show my transformation, which is the example of the company, right? I've had to do so much work with my relationship with myself, you know, like just my physical body, about, you know, my self-loathing, my, you know, very destructive, you know, viewpoints of my physical body, what my insecurities. I'm an introvert, you know, and I'm fucking dancing around on Instagram in a G-string now. And it's like, you know, that takes so much work with self to be like, whatever I look like.
Wait, did you say you're an introvert?
Yeah, I'm at 100%. I would be in the dark by myself all day long if I could. Yeah. And
I'm glad you're not.
I'm not, but
Glad
like
you're here under the lights.
But if I had my choice, like to be someone who's now in a public space and like even doing these types of conversations, like it takes a lot of work with myself to be able to do this type of stuff.
Well, it's so funny because you touched upon so many things right there, and you talked about your relationship with yourself, and that's something that I now understand is something that needs to be the healthiest relationship that I have.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
And that, and then for me, it is being in recovery. I have to have a connection with some sort of higher power. I choose to call it God, and that's something where it's like it's not really a religious thing as much as it is acknowledging that when stubborn ass Adam wants to take control over a situation and wants to change people or change circumstances or change outcomes, understanding that I'm not that powerful and that whatever happens, and I need to accept it and make the best out of it. And that's something that is rooted in understanding just my own limitations and being all accepting of any outcome. So it's definitely easier said than done because I was definitely someone who just loved to impose their will on everything until I
me too.
enforce things. And, I find that to be challenging when it comes to the people and the relationships that are closest to me. They say the people who can push your buttons are the ones who installed them. Mm-hmm. And talk about how that has transformed your approach in relationships.
Well, I've definitely read the book, The Surrender Experiment, 100 times now and listened to it as an audiobook as well as reading it. So definitely learning how to let go of what I expect to happen and be okay with whatever does happen is a lot of work.
Yes.
And it has changed my relationships with partners. It's changed my relationships with friends. A lot of people have fallen away and a lot of people have shown up. And I realize that like it is my energy and my frequency that, will remove people or draw people towards me. And being okay with that and being okay with people removing themselves and being okay with whatever shows up and what happens is supposed to be. And not to the point where you just like let everything go to shit, but you can't control other people. You can show people what's possible. You can voice your opinion on something. You can, tell someone your perspective, but let them, right now Mel Robbins is on fire, but like let them do what they're going to do. You've communicated in a healthy way. Hold yourself accountable to your communication. And then if it doesn't, if something's hurting you, explain that it is hurting you, especially if you're in a partnership, like your behavior that you did hurt my feelings and this is how I feel about it. It's up to them to change that. And it's up to you to remove yourself if it doesn't. So it's on you to, kind of hold that line.
Well, it's so true. And like one of the things that I leaned on really heavily early on in my growth journey was the serenity prayer. And it's like, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And obviously, I don't know why I spit it, but everyone knows it. But regardless, like that's like fundamentally like my North Star, where it's like, hey, like I can't control this. I have no control over it. And one of the things was accepting that other people is like, so you can't control them. And you talked about like the communication component, and obviously you're a skilled communicator, having obviously your entire body of work, and then what you do as building a personal brand. What are some good strategies that you can provide the audience with when it comes to communicating how you feel while also respecting boundaries?
Well, I'm going to go right into like a partnership because that's probably the easiest like example to provide for someone for something like that. Like, I think it's really important for there to be a safe space created for both people, which is the hardest thing I think to do, to be able to like say, like, I want us to be able to talk about this. And I know this is I'm literally going through this right now, of course. I want to be able to talk about this. And I know I might say things that are going to hurt your feelings or trigger you or make you feel resistant in a way. But I'm saying these things to you because I care about you and I want this relationship to work.
Yeah.
So like laying down the expectation that like this is coming from love.
Yeah.
And this is not coming from an attack perspective. Like, I'm saying these things to you because I want us to be able to move forward together and they're really important to me. And I want you to understand how I'm receiving it. And I want to explain to you like how I think you are, you know, what is happening. And I want you to be able to tell me how you are receiving your information from me. Because if I'm saying the sky is blue and you're hearing me say the motherfucking sky is dark, we're having an issue because I'm saying these words and you're hearing these words. So what are you hearing me say?
Yeah. Right? How are you interpreting this?
Right.
Yeah.
How are you like, because everyone receives their information through their childhood trauma or their, you know, whatever PTSD they're going through and their relationships with their parents. So like you're never actually fighting with someone in that present moment. You're fighting with their past partner, or you're fighting with
the little
their
boy
dad,
or little girl inside
or
them.
the little girl that wasn't seen, or the, you know, like I have been like, personally been like, wow, I just fucking got in a fight with my dad and it was my partner, you know, and I've been in arguments with my partner and I'm like, you're not even yelling at me.
Yeah.
This isn't like, I could be a cartoon cutout right now. Like, this has nothing to do with me. This has to do with your fucking bullshit, with your whatever. You need to go address that and figure out why you're upset with me about this.
Yeah.
Because of what?
It's so funny because, you know, like, you know, I've been in a relationship for a very long time. And it's, you know, one of the things I don't really talk about it nearly as much because I want to respect her privacy. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I will say is that understanding that not everyone is on that same, I don't want to say level, but in the same place in their healing journey,
right,
in their recovery journey. And some people aren't doing anything at all.
Right.
You know, I'm blessed that we both are on this healing journey, but I am probably a little bit more ahead on that journey. And I'm super grateful that, you know, she has begun that for herself. But yes, sometimes I do find myself saying things that she's not going to understand yet, or she's not going to hear it the way that I say it.
Right.
And with the intention that I have behind it. And that's something that we struggle with, you know, pretty regularly.
Yeah.
And it really is on me. And in the moment, I wish I could pause myself, and I'm working on it. Usually it's the next day where I can sit down calmly and be like, hey, let's just unpack what happened, what we discussed yesterday. And this is where I'm coming from when I'm sharing with you this. This is advice, or this is just my perspective. It's not I'm not giving you direction. I'm not like commanding you to do things. I'm making a suggestion on how to handle a situation because I've been in a similar situation, and, you know, this is how I handled it, and it worked out well, and it didn't stress me out, and it didn't add any, you know, negativity to my life. And for me, I think it stems from the understanding where I should have what I should have my hands in and what I shouldn't.
Right.
And
what should come out of your mouth and what should just be shown through your actions.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing. I think especially when you are further along in your growth, let's say, or acknowledgement or seeing, is sometimes you don't have to say the words.
Yeah.
You just have to show them through your actions, and people can receive that information better. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed to saying, well, you should do this. Yeah. Instead of just doing it, and then they're like, that's how you navigate that shit.
Well, for me, it's like it's rooted in the fact that I was the cause of trauma for my family for a very long time. You know, I was the one who, when I came home, they didn't know which version of me they were going to get. I was the one that they walked on eggshells around. I was the one where they had to, snap into survival mode as a direct result of my alcoholism, my addiction. And, understanding that just like, 12 to 15 years of active addiction, 3 years isn't going to heal that damage. 3 years isn't long enough for them to kind of snap out of the fact that like they don't need to react to Adam. They don't need to anticipate an emotional outburst from me. They don't need to hear what I say and interpret it in a way that I would have assumed that they need to interpret it previously, because now I speak pretty directly and I tell them how I feel. And I say what I ask for what I need, or I'm not afraid to ask for help. Whereas before it was like, what did Adam mean by that? How's he going to react if I do this? How's he going to react to this? And, it's super humbling, in a way that like, to even talk, like really see it that way, where it's like, I made them this way when it comes to our relationship. Do you think that like there are certain points where the best thing is to just kind of create distance?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the best moves, because it makes people have time to reflect. And if they don't, I'm always like, if I try to be as still as possible, like if I don't know how to answer a question, or if I'm with my partner and I'm physically reacting to something, I try. It's very fucking hard sometimes to not emotionally respond and to let myself have some space in order to process because I was a hairpin trigger fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
That was my job. I was supposed to make really intense decisions like that.
Yeah.
So now how I want to live my life is an alignment. And, I don't want to constantly be grasping and trying and hustling. I want to attract the life that I am living, and the partnerships and the friendships that I have. And so that requires me to be in a calm state as much as possible. That requires me to handle my emotions independently of other people daily. For like an hour and 20 minutes every day, I have to do my mental and emotional work with myself, or I cannot be this version of myself. And I'm still triggered, and I still am just doing my best.
Yeah.
But I have to be still with myself. I have to give myself time alone to be able to do my meditations. I can't start my day unless meditating has happened. I mean, we've talked about this before, but I couldn't believe how important that practice was. And it was the thing I resisted the most. And, I used to work out hours a day, and now I meditate hours a day, and it's so that I can understand what is aligning with me, what I'm triggered from, what's my childhood bullshit that I'm responding to, why I'm responding to it like that. And, that's my way of kind of coping with or managing my response system. And I'm absolutely noticing that like I don't respond as fast as possible. I'm much more patient. I'm like, I used to have the statement of like, patience is a virtue that I do not possess. Like I used to say that. And now people are like, you're the most patient person I've ever met. Like for you to get upset about something like this and to react, how many months has this been boiling inside of you? And I'm like, 6. And they're like, well, of course you're going to flip out. You should have flipped out 5 months ago, And so realizing that when I do it, it is what it is. And I'm doing my best to try to manage my emotions and make decisions calmly from a place,
One of the things for me that has been interesting is understanding that. So you having come from like that corporate intense background, understanding that persona isn't really great to apply to personal relationships. And I acknowledge I do that, when it comes to like scheduling time, scheduling time. And when it comes to just the way I approach personal problems, I do. Yeah. I look at it and I'm like, where's the problem? What are the different options? How can I, make sure I'm not overstepping? Like the basic things. But you talked about like the pause, and incorporating the pause in these situations for me is like super important. And, I need to step up my meditation game. I really like lean into like the breathing, the breathing exercise, because those calm me down and help me, and just like I could do them anywhere. And what are like other practices that you incorporate like on a daily basis now to just make sure that in every interaction, every experience that you're presenting yourself as the best version of yourself?
So I meditate an hour and 20 minutes every morning before I get out of bed. Like there's no human contact before that work is done. And I work out 15 minutes a day, do low impact Pilates. So mind and body is taken care of, soul is taken care of. And then I have, my physical practice, which is dry brushing and using the Diamandia body gua sha every day as part of my shower routine to reduce inflammation in the body. That's it. That's like, there's no plunging. There's no, I used to do all the things.
Yeah.
Like, I was like I am like the wellness person, but I've gotten my nervous system to a point where I'm not in fight or flight all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not intensely jacking myself up, so I don't have to intensely balance that out with the plunging and all the other stuff. I'm not doing marathons anymore, so I don't have to balance that out with like the more intense, reduction. So I just stay right in there. I stay right in there with my meditation, with 15-minute workout, and with the dry brushing and the body gua sha.
I think a lot of people like talk about meditation, and a lot of people struggle with it.
Oh, it took me 5 years. Took me 5 years of off and on. And then like even doing the research, like I, in my brain knew these are the people that I want to like, researching Oprah, researching Jerry Seinfeld, the people that have like done shit. Like how do they do the shit, right? You study what works, right? Yeah. Like, so they were like my case studies. Like, how does this person function every day? And Jerry Seinfeld was like, I wouldn't have been able to do the show without TM, Transcendental Meditation. Okay, noted. Oprah couldn't do the Oprah show without meditation. And I knew all of these things, right? And still, I couldn't sit down for 15 minutes and get it done. And I was struggling back and forth. And I intuitively knew that Joe Dispenza was like the next move for me. And I had gone to Peru twice, experimented with plant medicine. And I like knew in my body, it was time for him. I didn't even like, I read his book and it resonated with me. And then I just like left it alone for 5 years and just didn't touch his stuff. But for some reason, it just kept coming up. And I was like, okay, Joe, let's go. And I flew to Colombia. I went to Cartagena and I did a week. And I was not meditating before him. Like I was doing a 15-minute meditation. I was doing Melissa Woodhouse, 15-minute align and anchor. And that got me at a TED stage. And I remember like I did that. And I remember sitting down, I was about to go down to the stage and I was like, I like did it. Like I've been like aligning and anchoring with my intention for 15 minutes every day. And here I fucking am. And I'm getting on a TED stage. And it was like, I did it. Like I fucking did it. And it like hit me like before. And I started bawling my eyes out. And I couldn't believe it because you sit still for 15 minutes and what you're training your body and your mind to believe this future version of yourself. And then I was the future version of myself. And I'm like, I couldn't fucking believe it. Like by the time I got on the stage, I was like, yeah, let's go. Yeah. Like I wasn't scared anymore. For like 7 weeks, every day, all day long, I studied that fucking speech and I thought I was going to fuck it up. And I thought everyone was going to laugh. And I thought, it was like 3,000 people. And I was like having nervous breakdowns, like so much anxiety. And by the time I got down there, I was like, where is it at? Let's go.
I love that.
Because I was like, it's done already. It's already done. Like, I've already done this. I already know, and no one knows what I'm going to say. So I can't fuck this up. It's my story. So, like, they don't know. Like, it's
Yeah.
mine. Like, I could get up here and dance like an Irish step dance, and they have no idea what's coming for them. So, like, why am I making this harder than it needs to be? And so that was my experience with meditation. Then the Joe Dispenza thing, I was like, all right. And then I went to his event, and it was just like, it was, I can't even believe that I talk about this. Like, I can't believe myself that I sit here and I talk about this stuff, because
meditation,
how impactful it's been in my life, what I've done with, like, how my body's changed, like, physically, how it's changed, because you can see it visually. You can't see it mentally. And unless people are around you all the time, they can't see what's happening that you're pulling in. But you can see when you have abs and you don't have abs. It's like an easy thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can see inflammation on somebody's body, right? You can't. So I like to show that, because that shows your nervous system resetting itself. And I happen to do, Claudia, you know how I record videos all the time of, like, me using my own products. And I was recording videos at the beginning of Joe Dispenza's event. And then I recorded videos when I got home, and I had a different body from meditation. Like, I was not working out while I was there, and I was beating myself up because I wasn't exercising, and I was so worried I was going to get fat, like, all this bullshit. And I lost 15 pounds.
That's wild.
Yeah. From sitting still, meditating, because I was resetting my nervous system, and my body was in a constant state of fight or flight. And because I was constantly worried about something, I was elevated, and I was holding on to the inflammation.
What do you say to people who are just like, that's bullshit?
Go look at the fucking videos. Yeah. Like,
well, I just feel like, and I'm not saying that I am.
No,
I'm saying that there's a lot of people who, like, are like, oh, like that, they don't believe it.
Well, it wasn't just the meditation. It was the fact that I was detoxing my body with my product. Yeah. I was dry brushing and using my body gua sha. So I'm pulling toxins out of my body every day for a year. I'm already my nervous system has already been reducing itself for a while. And then I'm eating clean. I'm eating anti-inflammatory already. I gave my body a rest, so I did no exercising. So my inflammation was not being triggered by that. So, of course, it took all of the work, all of the stuff, the peptides, all the stuff I've been working on, and it just went and shot me right through a cannon.
I love that.
And it just let go of that ultra under the hood, like, catalytic converter type stuff that, like, the muck that I was still holding on to, that was really driving my nervous system to be vibrating up here as opposed to calm and, your parasympathetic nervous system, which is calm state. If you're an intense person, if you exercise intensely, if you have a lot of stress, your body is in an elevated state constantly. And you can't sleep. You have a hard time. You're up at 3 o'clock in the morning because your cortisol levels are fucking rising. Like, this is shit that I hear all the time. And it was all those things that, like, came together, which is, why I put out the 7-day reset, which is how I live my life every day. Like, this is exactly what I do. This is exactly what I eat. I ate that whole cake. Like, I ate the whole cake. I didn't split it with anybody, okay? And I have been, like, losing inflammation. You guys have watched that happen in front of your eyes, because the first 3 years I was doing this, I wasn't selling anything. I was just talking about what I was doing, resilience, about, things that I was adding into my practice, and talking about my thyroid, breaking down and having Hashimoto's and all of these food intolerances that I was finding out about blowing up like a balloon, gaining 20 pounds overnight of inflammation, getting shingles 40 times, training through shingles like an asshole, like just kept pushing and pushing, and my body trying to talk to me and me not listening. And then it finally whacked me out. And, I had to rebuild my mind and body at the same time and heal from the inside out. And, the mold toxicity and Lyme disease, I could just keep going and going of all the stuff that I've gone through, like, with my body. But it's real. And, like, I didn't know I was documenting it to share it for this reason, but I was. And, the videos that I share of my body were for doctors, because I would go to doctors and they wouldn't believe me. That's and they awesome. Would be like, we don't have the rash now. And I'm like, well, bam, like, well, this was 2 hours ago. The rash is fucking gone because I took 7 Benadryl and passed out, and now I'm here. But like, this isn't normal. And how could you say it's not happening? And just going through that process of being like, not having doctors hear me or hear what I was going through or believe what I was going through, and having to document it for them, those became my befores.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah, and I put that out there on the internet now. like here's me 80 pounds heavier with blisters and pustules all over my body. Yeah, here's a video of that. You want to like try to say that I'm not real or that like I'm making this shit up? Like those are the receipts.
Yeah, having like done the work and really committed a regimen to yourself
with grace. That's a huge part of that.
Talk about that.
Well, I was very like, I have to exercise 4 hours, this much cardio, I have to burn this many calories, I have to do this, and if I don't, I'm not valued, right? If I didn't do all those things, I have no value. And now it's like 15 minutes, and like I sleep late, and like that's not lazy, and my body needs to heal. Like it needs rest. I'm not superhuman. I'm also not showing up the best version of myself when I do things like that, and it's affecting my relationships. I'm not present for people. I don't want that type of life.
We talked a little bit about like the mental work and whatnot that we do on ourselves, and being in proximity with someone who might not be on the same path or they're the same level of the journey.
Yeah.
Do you try to surround yourself with people who are kind of adopting similar principles and philosophies and habits?
I try to put myself around people who are further along than I am.
Yeah.
Which could be challenging. And I don't mean that with any ego in any way. I just have like done a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
I try because I want to be a better version of myself. So I want to be around people who've gone further than I have gone, and making sure that I have mentors, and making sure that I have coaches, and making sure that I have my accountability, and not always giving. I'm a giver.
Yeah.
I love coaching. I love, the company that I have. I love doing what I do. I love doing this, but I will run myself ragged and keep pouring from an empty cup. And so one of my, biggest lessons is not only should I be pouring from a full cup, I should be pouring from like the reserve tank underneath that full cup. That's how I pour. And so I want to help everybody and help fix everybody, but that's not my job.
Yeah.
My job is to teach people the tools and to be very clear with myself how much energy I put out for service and how much energy I reserve for myself. And that's been a huge lesson for me.
It's so funny because, like being in the roles in your career path where control was everything, and having the presence of mind to just surrender and understand that prioritizing your own mind, spirit, body is what really will truly make you impactful and happy, frankly.
And no matter what, I've had massive real estate deals come in, massive deals come in, and all that goes out the fucking window. All that goes out the window when, it's $190 million. You're like, wait a minute. No.
Yeah.
No. We did not get here to learn this lesson again the hard way. Like, knock it the fuck off. And that's me talking to myself.
Yeah.
So, there is a lot of that, like, check yourself, like, that time, that meditation, the hour and 20 is like, no, like, you have to check your shit. You're not helping anybody else today.
I'm definitely not an hour and 20. Like, it's funny because, I've been seeing this specialist for like this neck issue, and every morning I have to like lay on this neck thing, and I use that as an opportunity to just kind of stay grounded in meditation because I'm not very good at meditating. I'm good at the breathing. I'm good at
everybody's good at meditating.
Well, okay. Sorry.
Everyone's good at it.
I'm working on it.
You can't fuck it up.
Yeah.
There's no bad at it.
All right. Well, okay.
Creating the space for it.
Maybe that's what it is, because I am, the synapses of my brain are just rapid fire sometimes. But it has given me some solace, like just laying there and not being able to do anything. So I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity for me to just calm my mind and getting better at it.
Yeah, it's hard to be still.
Well, it's really more, I'm not saying not good at it as much as I want to keep building on the amount of time that I commit to it. Because I think that's how you get better at it.
Yeah.
Just like extended by 2 minutes, extended by 2 minutes, extended by 5 minutes to get to, a nice, serene place in my mind for an extended period of time.
It never happens.
What do you
You're
mean?
never going to be in a nice, serene place in your mind for an extended period of time for the whole meditation.
Okay.
It could be like 4 hours, 20 minutes. It could be 15 minutes. It could be 2 hours. It doesn't matter. You're always going to have the narrative. The narrative just gets quieter. It just doesn't overpower you to get up. You just get more comfortable being still. You all have like taught your body for how many years to go. That going faster and doing more was the answer to get you someplace.
Well, I think it's a pivot to what I said before where, while the way I was living snapped everybody around me into survival mode, I very much was in survival mode as well.
Of course.
And kind of like training my mind that we're good. Like you don't need to be in survival mode. You don't need to be afraid. I think fear is rooted a lot in a lot of why we are reactive and why we are impulsive and why you put that self-imposed pressure on yourself. And for me, fear was a huge part. It's like, and I was in a fuck everything and run kind of mentality rather than face everything and recover mentality. And now that I'm in that face everything and recover, it's like the fear loses its just sustainability in my head. And I think that was like really pivotal for me. And I want to kind of talk about you about it because I'm sure fear had, I'm someone who believes that every negative emotion is rooted in fear.
Absolutely.
So whether it's anger, anger, resentment, even sadness, fear is always the underlying factor in every negative emotion. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's fear or love. You're either coming from fear or love.
Yeah.
So and you don't necessarily have to know the answer, but like if you know that you are having negative response to something, it's because you're afraid of something, and I actively, I'm going to say it again, like meditation, like actively working an hour a day on coming from love as opposed to coming from fear is life-changing. Like waking up and being fucking happy and being like, you know what, today is awesome because the sun is not even out, but today is awesome. Like, I am so grateful for my life. I have this amazing partner that I get to like say good morning to, and I get to do whatever the fuck I need to do today, and who cares what it is because it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I've never lived like that. And like, that's how I wake up. Like, my partner literally was like, you're fucking annoying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm happy. Like, this is awesome. And I want everyone to feel that way.
Yeah.
And that's like, I used to wake up and be like, oh God, here we go again. Like, and that's how most people wake up. And I don't want anyone to feel that way. Like, our lives are precious.
Yeah.
These moments, I get hit by a fucking car tomorrow and this is over. And like, what I do today is how someone's going to remember me, and like how I live my life, like the joy that I have every day. Like, that's how I want everyone to feel this good about themselves from the inside of their body to the point where they just want to give it away.
Yeah. I want to talk about how the work that you've done now and the meditation, how it's helped for you to deal with the past traumas of, obviously you had the boyfriend who committed suicide, the loss of your brother. Now that you approach life the way that you do now, how has that helped in really just unpacking and facing those traumas?
I don't think about them as traumas anymore. So this might be a little bit hard for people to wrap their brain around, but they're probably the best things that have ever happened for me. I couldn't say that at the time. I probably couldn't say that for years after, but if I hadn't gone through those things, I wouldn't have faced my relationship with my parents. I wouldn't have done the work with myself. I wouldn't have hit such a rock bottom that I had to make those decisions about myself and realize that I was causing this. Not that it was my fault,
Yeah.
but like from an energetic standpoint, And also from an intuitive standpoint, I could have made other decisions that I disregarded with myself, and I wasn't true to myself. And why did I abandon my own judgment in different times for both of those relationships, with my brother and with my partner? So, I'm very, very grateful for what I've gone through. And, I've built this amazing, position with this company to be able to help people and be an example for what's possible if you do the work with yourself.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have gotten here, and I wouldn't have, the partner I have now, or be in the relationship that I have now that is so fulfilling. And it's not easy. And trust me, I still have really bad days, and shit gets hard, and it sucks sometimes. And like yesterday, I just had to like cancel the rest of the day at like 1. Like 1 o'clock, I was like, it's over. It's over. And I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And I need to like go chill out because I haven't slept, and I'm not being a great version of myself, and I'm not going to send nice emails. And like, I have to take care of myself, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But like, you have the ability to live a life that is amazing. There's no magic potion. There's no secret. There's no network that I have. There's no fucking contacts. There's nothing that's preventing you from being happy except you doing the work with yourself.
Yeah.
And there's no excuse for it except for whatever excuse you're coming up with. So ultimately, it's your decision.
It's so funny because like I love how your answer to the question regarding the your brother and your partner. And for myself, like I've had a friend who took her own life, and then 2 years ago I had a friend take his own life, and or a year ago. And the way I approached both of those was very different. Where the first time when my friend Lauren took her own life, I blamed myself, or I played the what if game.
Yeah, of course.
I played the if only game, the whole 9. And guilt was the first thing I felt. And then last year when a friend did the same thing, his name was Casey, I felt relieved for him in a way. And the only guilt I felt was that's how I initially felt. Because I was like, I should be really sad. But acknowledging the fact that he was in as much pain as he was, that he felt that he had to do that. It was just a complete night and day approach.
Yeah.
And now when I look at it, I'm just grateful that the time that I had with them, I was able to share with them. And I've learned a lot just about myself, but about how to process grief and how to process trauma and how to understand that things don't, happen to you, they happen for you. And even like the most devastating things, there are gifts associated with them.
Absolutely. There's always a lesson, and I'm always screaming when I'm in it, like, what is the lesson? Because I'm so angry that I can't. I'm like, I know there's something in here that I need to learn, but fuck, like, does it have to be like this? But there is a lesson in everything that happens.
Yeah.
As painful as it is, you can choose to make yourself grow from that. And do you want to do the work? It's like really it. Do you want to do the work? Do you want to have an amazing life, or do you want to be miserable and blame other people for your problems?
Diamandia, I love that. And, I want to talk about purpose, obviously. Big ass sign behind us. What does the word purpose mean to you, and how has it played a role throughout your journey?
I would say I didn't have any. I didn't have one. I thought that money was purpose. And I thought a title was purpose. I thought your career and your bank account to find your value. And I would say for myself, alignment to like my like morals and intentions is my purpose. So that can be mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And alignment is, I feel like a manifestation, abundance, and alignment is like so right now. But it's really trusting your gut all the way, trusting your gut without whatever's happened to you overlaying your gut, right? So without coming from a place of fear, hopefully, as best you can, but really true to like what lights you up as a person and how you want to live your life. You know, what a lot of people have different definitions of what joy is and different definitions of what happiness is. A lot of people think that like money is happiness, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feel differently about that. You know, I've had a lot, I've had none. Very small amounts of time between the two. And as being an entrepreneur, like you change your relationship with money very quickly, because if not, you'll be suicidal probably because, you know, money fucking comes in and then it's all gone in 2 hours. So like really understanding like what type of person I wanted to be, how I wanted to show up in the world, and what I wanted to give back was pivotal for me to understand my alignment and my purpose. And because I had, you know, everything was ripped, you know, and I was at rock bottom, I was able to start putting it back together piece by piece, like slowly. Of course, it didn't happen fast enough in the moment because nothing happens fast enough. But I was slowly figuring out like what worked for me, what I wanted my life to be like. You know, I got my real estate license. I became a broker. I explored that path. I realized that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be the investor and the developer. And so like that morphed into its own thing. But I like dabbled in that for a couple years and was like, I don't want to have these types of conversations with other human beings on a regular. Like, I don't want to argue about an Oriental rug. I'm not going to be the type of person who lets a deal fall apart over a $1,500 bullshit thing. Like, I realized like this isn't aligning with me. Okay. I want to have these types of conversations. I want to show up like this. I want these types of deals to come in. I want to do these types of projects. So I started like, once I just became clear, then the partner showed up. Then the capital showed up. Then like things started opening up. Then this business started. Like my company, I didn't have any intention at all in starting this company. Like there was no business plan. I didn't sit down and make a goal sheet. There was none of that shit. I just, for 3 years, posted on Instagram 3 times a day minimally. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know.
3 times a day.
3 times a day. And sometimes 5. I was like, I went all the way in on Gary Vee. I consumed everything Gary Vee had to say about, you know, brand, and what he was saying from my experience in the corporate world was spot the fuck on. So I had my experience with that, and then I had this amazing human being spouting some truth. So I threw myself into his content. I threw myself into his logic, and I just replicated it. And I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew is I wanted to help as many people as possible. That was something that became very clear to me through an ayahuasca ceremony, that I was a vessel for change for other people. And I had to accept that about myself. And that didn't mean I had to do more. I mean, I had to show more. And I had to be okay with myself in showing more. And so that became very clear. And then I was like, and I'm going to start a real estate investment company so I don't have to be broke at the same time. And it was like, click. And it was 6 weeks after my ayahuasca ceremony. I was sitting at my desk and it just like came to me and I was like, Jesus, you know, and then it was dead. I knew exactly what I was going to do. And I had someone who had been trying to get me on their podcast for 4 months. And I said no to him for 4 months. And then I finally was like, yup.
Was it Sean?
No. It was the one that Sean listened to.
Okay.
That went viral. Once that went viral, I was not hiding in any closets. My Instagram blew up. And then I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I have 10,000 new followers. Yeah, I went from like 1,000 to like 15,000. And I was like, I was not ready emotionally. I was not ready energetically. I had no idea about any of that stuff yet. And I was like, okay, I'm going to just create change. And I just thought about like, well, what is it about me that I think is important for other people to know? Like, what information do I have that it would be valuable to a community of people?
Yeah.
My health experience is happening. You know, I have real estate knowledge. I picked 3 things. And I was like, all right, I'm going to post about health, real estate, blah, blah, blah. Right. Yeah. And I just doubled down on it.
Just like my life.
Yeah. I was like, it was my life. It's who I am. It's what I do. And I'm just going to share that. And I just picked 3 pillars of content. I pumped that out for 3 years. I had no idea how I was going to monetize anything. I thought it was a giant fucking waste of time at times. I didn't know how I was going to pay video people. I was like broke. I was just, what am I doing? I'm pissing all my money, you know, like all the things. How I have nothing valuable to say. No one's going to want to listen to what I have to say. Who am I to get up here and talk about this shit? I'm not a doctor. I mean, I can tell you all the limiting beliefs that I've gone through. But I just kept going. I kept going. And I posted, I was using a lymphatic paddle, a wooden paddle. And I had been talking about that. I was traveling the world and I was doing all the body treatments to reduce the inflammation of my body because getting on planes, I was blowing up like Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Like I was gaining, 15, 20 pounds on a flight and I was packing for 3 sizes. Like, do you know how insane that is emotionally?
That's wild.
To pack 3 sizes because you don't know what you're going to look like when you get off the plane. Like, like psychosis was happening in my brain. I was like, I have to manage this. So I was getting body treatments before and body treatments after. And I got pulled into like a network of lymphatic specialists in the world because I was in London, I was in Paris, I was in Bali, I was in Beverly Hills, I was in New York. I was just all over for all the things I was working on. And I just ended up seeing all these crazy lymphatic specialists. And it's a very small group. And then I ended up with J-Lo's lymphatic masseuse and Elle McPherson's lymphatic masseuse. And I recorded this, parts that they would let me record. And I was talking about this and people started really gravitating towards, how are you doing this? Like, how is that? And I also then ran out of money. So I was like, I'm not J-Lo. I don't have J-Lo's bankroll. I can't spend another $1,000 on body treatments every time I get on and off a plane. Like, who the fuck am I right now? Like, get real. So I did that till I couldn't. And, in my brain, I'm like, okay, so I go get a facial and then I have my skincare routine at home. That's normal. Where is this thing at home? Like, where's the thing at home for me to maintain these treatments? There was none. I found this wooden paddle. I started using it. I was sharing that. I had the wooden paddle in my hand. I was using it on my leg. It slipped. I broke 4 fingernails and I was furious. Like, you break 1 nail, it can ruin your day. 4 at a time, I threw the thing across the room. Okay. But I was like, why isn't there a handle on this? Why is this fucking angle work like this? My ass goes up. This thing needs to go up. Like, I just moved the angles. I started creating prototypes. So I was like, I took the wooden paddle, I put handles in it, I put my name on it, I moved the thing, and I, got on the thing, and I started finding manufacturers, and I had prototypes sent, and I went through like 19 prototypes, and they didn't work the way that I wanted them to work. And then I started looking into, facial gua shas and why facial gua shas were made of stone and jade, and why was it using wood? Like, what am I doing using wood? Why am I using wood when we use this shit on my face? So I started looking into the healing powers of jade and bienstone. And bienstone has 40 trace minerals in its composition. So just by holding that, your body starts healing itself. And bienstone was used for, like, they created cones out of bienstone hundreds of centuries ago, which is how they started acupuncture. So where we put needles on our body is where they would put cones of bienstone. So rooted in traditional Chinese medicine from the jump. I was like, I want that. What's the biggest piece of bienstone I could possibly get? And can you make it like this prototype? And then all of a sudden I had a product and I used the product and I put a link up. I threw a Shopify store up with 1 image and I put a link on my Instagram stories and I sold 545 minutes. I didn't even have the shit. I didn't have the boxes. I didn't have the thing. And guess where I was going? To Joe Dispenza for a week. So I couldn't even sit in front of a computer. I just had all these orders coming in. I had no boxes.
That's wild.
I had no branding. I had no nothing. And I was going to meditate.
Dude, that's a wild story.
That's how the company was launched.
I love that.
I was in the bathroom at Joe Dispenza, texting with a company in Portland to get fast boxes made. And when they showed up, they smelled like hot sneakers. So I had to pour baking soda in the boxes and put them on my porch and then vacuum them out. And then ship. I can't even explain, bootstrap.
But those are the things that
to the bootstrap.
Entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
And God, we haven't even touched entrepreneurship. And We're gonna have to now. So like that's an awesome story, but I think that puts a lot of things into perspective where there's so many aspiring entrepreneurs and they see these folks who are, have their own brands and they make it look easy. And you just told exactly like what you had to do. What advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are just in that weird space?
Just keep going. Just fucking keep going. Like, you're going to get hit. You're going to get run over. You're going to question yourself. You're going to question everything. People are going to come at you. Trolls are coming for you. No one's going to believe in you. Who fucking cares if your parents think you're crazy? Just keep going. If you believe in yourself, it can happen. That's all I have to say. You have to have this like crazy, delusional sense of like self-worth in order for it to work. Like, you have to believe in yourself to like almost a crazy thing. Like, I can say, like, from no ego, I believe that I will be successful in whatever I create. And I will get my ass kicked in that process, and I will make mistakes in that process, and I will cry and I will question myself, but I'm not going to fail. Like, you can't, like, I'm not going down. Like, there's no way.
I love that.
There's no fucking way. And there's a reason why I worked for Dana White. There's a reason why.
Wow.
Like, bet against me, I dare you. You ever see that video of him? Bet against me. I fucking love it.
That's awesome.
That's like,
it's true.
it is. And I believe, like,
That's more of a that's a mindset.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And listen, I've cried. So I've cried every day for months, like, and then I'm crying tears of joy. And then I'm like, what am I doing? Like this, why am I crying so much? And then you judge yourself on the fact that you're emotional. And it's like this, from my experience, having a brand with my name on it has been the most challenging thing I have ever had to deal with. And every part of my process with it, I've had to unlock something that's been holding myself back. It's every time I look into like, what am I not doing? Like, where's my resistance in this moment with my X, Y, and Z? And whenever I figure that out, something fucking goes through the roof.
Oh yeah.
Like, not sharing my, those videos that I had talked about of my, like, the doctor's videos of me being just awful in my own skin. I was resisting that. I didn't want to put that shit out there. I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want to not look attractive. Who wants rashy, pustule, fat fucking videos of themselves out there with, like, I had rashes under my breasts and like just bloated. I just, you'll probably go check them out now, but
Oh well.
you don't want people to see you. And even my close friends were like, I had no fucking clue.
Yeah.
And we talked every day and you didn't share this. And I was like, yeah, why would I want to? But when I put that out there, when I let go of people judging me,
The shame,
the guilt, like the judgment on self, that blew my company through the next level. God,
that's something I say all the time. It's like detaching the shame, the guilt, the negative feeling that makes you feel about parts of your life. Once you work on detaching that, you are a superhero because you could harness that darkness to really, really have a deep, lasting impact with people.
Yeah.
And that's really was the turning point for me when I really just got vulnerable in my story and talked about, what I was doing, the decisions I was making, the people who I was affecting and probably hurting. And that's where the shame was rooted. And when I shared it, judgment was the last thing I faced. It was like, man, like I can relate to this.
Yeah, that we're all going through something.
We're all going through something.
We're all going through the same shit. There's a reason why you and I connected. You heard part of yourself in me. I heard part of myself in you. Like, that's why we are doing this, so people can hear our story and they can take some nugget away from this and create some change. Like running into, I don't even remember his name, was with Dave. Sean heard me speak at the first summit and he was like, oh my God, I was thinking about you this morning because you said this last year I spoke, and he was like, I can't believe that you're standing here. But like, that was like, fuck, like I'm doing the right thing.
It's so funny because that is like the biggest gift that I get.
Yes.
When someone like slides into my DMs or run into, and they're like, I just listened to that episode, or, you know, I saw this post, or you said this in your speech at A to B Con 2 years ago. Like, that's wild.
The speech that I didn't want to give because I thought I was fat that day. Like, seriously, like that happens. Like, I've had those moments where I'm like, I don't want to do this because I'm X, Y, and Zing. But like, that has been the biggest thing for me is none of my insecurities are going to get in the way of me creating change. And if I'm preventing myself from doing a podcast or doing a speech or doing whatever because I'm X, Y, and Zing with myself, I have to look at what the fuck is happening. And then it's easier for me to push that aside and be like, no, we don't have time for this because that person needs to hear this story. And your bullshit with your pants needs to go fuck itself right now. Like, this is bigger than you. This is bigger than you. And this is bigger than your insecurities right now. So knock it the fuck off. And that's just how I talk to myself.
I love that. And
other people.
and other people, she said. You know, I usually end with like a couple of rapid fire questions, but we covered a lot. And I think you covered a lot of the rapid fire questions. But what I will do is throw one that I throw at everyone. And it is, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling to find their purpose?
Get still with themselves as much as possible and try to align with what brings them joy. And that's really all there is to it.
I love that.
Is like, there's, you know, I talked about a lot of different modalities today. I talked about ayahuasca, I talked about meditation, dry brushing, gua shaing, and all this shit. But it's really about choosing yourself and choosing to create that space with yourself to calm yourself and be able to make these decisions and to really start understanding you and why you're making choices that you're making in your life. And you need stillness for that. You know, you can't be an autopilot. You can't be going 100 miles an hour. You can't be pouring from an empty cup and making aligned decisions. So stillness.
That's amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm really grateful to have crossed paths with you. And I really look forward to working with you even more in the future on upcoming events and whatever. You know, like, I just think this is such a hopefully a long lasting friendship. And I want to shout out Kai Vision.
Absolutely.
This is the first Finding Purpose episode in his new studio space. Anyone who is looking to film content, launch a podcast, who's been dabbling with it, who has been wanting to and is afraid to.
There's no more excuses for that shit.
There's no more excuses. Hit me up. I'll connect you with Claudio and we can get this going. Get over yourself because like you got to be doing it. But last but certainly not least, can you speak to my audience, tell them where they can reach you, anything that you have upcoming, and I'm super grateful to have you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
Diamandia.com, Diamandia. And that's my handle everywhere. So Instagram at Diamandia, YouTube at Diamandia, TikTok at Diamandia, and then the URL is Diamandia, which is crazy.
Crazy.
It is.
Folks, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I am looking forward to sharing this with everyone. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on Spotify. It's going to be on iTunes. It's going to be everywhere. But most importantly, feel free to follow me at @AdamVora_ and Finding Purpose Pod. I look forward to hearing from you regarding this episode, regarding all past episodes. Definitely would love for you to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Those reviews help to boost me and allow me to reach a more broader audience so that hopefully other people are able to become rooted in their purpose and live intentionally as well. Thank you so much. And until next time.